Hey guys, StrifeCro here, and I'm here to do the last Karazhan card review. So this will be Karazhan card review number 3, and I'm gonna go through the rest of the cards. By the time you're watching this video, I actually would have already had a text-based version of this out on all of the things. I changed a couple of the old ones I've done, but I'm gonna go ahead and get for completion's sake. I'm gonna go ahead and get the YouTube ones all over so we can have all the cards here. So there's 2 more Druid cards, Moonglade Portal. So I think even though there's a lot of strong 6-drops, I think this card is very unlikely to be worth it because you have to trade the consistency of like a Cairn or an Emperor, Sylvanas. Like there are a lot of premium 6-drops. I think Druid is also one of the worst classes to have a heal on because a lot of times Druid can end the game with powerful taunters where it's like not as important for a Druid to have healing as perhaps another class that doesn't have access to such powerful taunters. You know, you usually would rather have the added tempo for Druid. And also Druid is a class that kind of favors a proactive playstyle because of the lack of board clear and comeback mechanics other than, you know, small AoEs like swipe. So since Druid can't really fall behind a lot in the first place without access to cards like Flame Strike, you know, trading the consistency of a strong 6-drop where you're risking falling behind to get a stronger heal is like, I don't think it's going to be too great. So I'm going to rate it a 2 out of 5. Next card, Menagerie Warden. This is actually a very good card in Beast Druid. I also went ahead and changed Channel Raven to 4 from before, now that we have, let's say, another strong Beast Druid card. I'm feeling much better about this card. Or I'm feeling much better about Enchanted Raven. Anyways, compared to Waldwaker, this generates much more stats if you already have a Beast on board. And the most important thing about Menagerie Warden is if you stick if you stick like a Druid Claw or even in charge form or taunt form or something like a Stranglethorn Tiger, you're going to be immediately threatening lethal with Menagerie Warden. This is like a 5/5 for 6. Say you get 2 5/5 for 6s, that's 10 power. If you already have a Stranglethorn, that's 15 power the next turn immediately. You know, if your Druid Claws charge something, they don't die immediately. You know, the Menagerie Warden's threatening another, like just copying the Druid Claw and charge form, getting basically, you know, another charge, copies of charge. So like people are going to have to really kill Druid Claws and charge. You know, even after it charges face, they might have to kill the Druid Claw over maybe a weaker minion. Let's see. So I think this card's going to be a 4 out of 5 for my ratings, and I actually think Beast Druid will be a strong deck, a very strong mid-range deck, one of the strong mid-range decks. And yeah, this card's like threatening so many Savage Roar combos immediately. I can see like Savage Roar killing so many people on turn 7. Next class, Hunter. I already reviewed Kindly Grandmother, so Cloaked Huntress. I think Cloaked Huntress a little bit in a weird spot because Hunter already has so many good 3-mana cards, like Animal Companion, Eaglehorn Bow. Also lesser like Kill Command as well. In a vacuum it looks very strong, but I don't think that this card fits in mid-range hunter, which is the strongest type of hunter now. I think it fits best in some kind of like, you know, trap, Yogg and Load, Eaglehorn list, where it aims to chip the opponent down with Eaglehorn Bow and Hero Power while using like AoE traps and AoE shots to clear, like kind of like a Yogg and Load reactive style, where eventually you deal enough damage to kill the enemy. So I mean, since just the raw power level of the card is strong, I can't rate this below like a 2 or a 1, you know, just because it's such a strong card. So I'm going to rate it a 3 out of 5 because I don't see it belonging in a strong archetype for Hunter, but the card is, you know, stats-wise as well as the ability is pretty good. Last thing I want to say about this card is mid-range Hunter doesn't really have like a high enough average hand size to make great use out of Cloaked Huntress. When you're playing it on turn 3, you're mostly going to have like, you know, only, I don't know, probably no draw, maybe like 3 or 5 cards in your hand. Not likely too many of them are going to be traps. Cat Trip, only new secret of the set. I think Cat Trip goes very well with Cloaked Huntress. This card is like a 2-mana Jungle Panther, 4/2 stealth, and activates on an enemy spellcast. So I think Cat Trick is going good in a similar Yogg-and-Load deck that Cloaked Huntress could be good in, but I think it's a little bit too situational or too weak for tempo-based mid-range hunter. And again, gonna rate this card 3 out of 5 because I don't see this archetype taking off past too well, even though it will be stronger than right now. Yogg-and-Load still has a while to go, and I don't think these cards fit in standard hunter. I believe we've done 2 of the mage cards so far. So the last mage card is Medivh's Valet. This is my personal favorite card of the set, just because it's a control mage card, and one of my favorite decks, as you all know, is Control Mage. I think this is one of the cards that can bring Control Mage back into the meta, or I guess even into the meta, since it might never have been in. The effect's actually a little bit stronger than even Alexstrasza's Champion, but harder to activate as well. Compared to Alexstrasza's Champion, like, that card shines in more of like an aggro deck where you can hit him in the face for 3 and have a 3/3 left over for 2. Or, you know, I guess it's like good at trading Teletrog, but Medivh's Valet is much more of a control-y effect because you can kill like 3/2s and 3/3s without actually losing your minion compared to Alexstrasza's Champ. Unfortunately, you're pretty much never going to be able to activate this card on turn 2, but late, like, it's going to be one of the cards that, like, one of the things that Control Mage, one of the things that's best about small minions in control decks is if you can use those minions both early and late game. That's why Armor Smith was used so long in Control Warrior, and cards like Cruel Taskmaster is like good old game. This is like good old game. It's decent on turn 2, and then you can even save it if you have secrets, and it's very good late game as well. I think the 2/3 stat line makes Tempo Mage not as likely to want this card as Control Mage. Also, I think Reno decks are gonna get, like, the Reno part of the Control Mage is going to get a lot less appealing because Mage is getting so many good early game cards, and you know the early game is like the main problem of Control Mage right now. So I kind of expect to see some non-Reno Control Mages with like Kirin Tor Mage and maybe like 4 to 5 secrets, 2 ice blocks, a barrier, maybe like a counterspell and a spellbender, as well as like the Ethereal Conjures and Babbling Books. Cabalist's Tomes. So these are all things that like generate random secrets for Kirin Tor Mage. So I think Kirin Tor Mage is like gonna maybe make a comeback into the meta with Medivh's Valet. So next we're gonna go into Paladin, Silvermoon Portal. I think it's a similar kind of card as like a combination of Blessing of Kings and Keeper of Uldaman. It gives +2/+2. Keeper of Oldman, you know, on a 1/1 gives +2/+2, but leaves behind a much stronger body, 3/4 instead of random 2-drop. It's like, I think it lacks the burst power of Blessing Kings and the flexibility of Uldaman, as well as just like not being as strong as Uldaman because Uldaman shrinks minions. Also lacks consistency, so there's better alternatives with less variance. 2 out of 5. Last Paladin card. This is the strongest card in the set in my opinion. It's a really strong card for Dragon Paladin. It's 4/5 worth of stats for 3 mana. This is, I think, on the muster of battle level of powers and could give us like maybe a new age of mid-range Paladin anchored by dragons instead of dudes. I think it combos very well with Bran as well. I think Paladin has long been the class of some of the strongest mid-range cards, but before GVG, the early game was too powerful, and after GVG, you know, it became too meta warping with a strong early and mid game. So right now, Paladin's kind of gone from the meta, but that's because the early game is too weak at the moment. I feel like with Nightbane Templar, Bookworm, so you're gonna have like access to a lot of dragons, let's say 2 Twilight Guardians, 2 Azure Drakes, 2 Bookworms, and even 2 Dragon Consorts for 8 dragons to activate Nightbane Templar and Corruptors, and then you can still have, let's say, Chillmaul for 9th Dragon, Tyrion N'Zoth, maybe Sylvanas to be one more Death Rattle, and then you can have like 2 Netherspite, the new Netherspite card. I guess the name isn't coming up in my mind right now, but Netherspite Historian. It seems like a very strong shell where like a more defensive type mid-range deck than say Dragon Warrior can pop up, where you close out games with like big dragons from the Discover or Tyrion N'Zoth combos, and you have a very strong like mid-game core. This it's just I think it's going to be anchored by this card right here, Nightbane Templar. It's just so powerful. 5 out of 5. Let's see, Priest, Purify. We haven't done any Priest cards yet. Purify. I doubt Purify is constructed viable, but since this type of card is really unique, I can't rate it a 1. Cards I'm rating a 1 are just like cards you'd never think about putting in your deck. I think it can enable a new type of self-silencing deck. Things with Watchers and Barns, silencing your guys off. But it's just, I don't think that the deck will be competitive. So, 2 out of 5. Mathematically very weak. Priest of the Feast, I think 3/6 stat line is very good. It's even better than the 4/5 stat line on turn 4 because it trades 3 attacks turn enough to trade into the early game. Like I think all 1 to 3 drops are all like less than 3 health or 3. It's only a couple of 3 drops with 4 health, like 3/4s. They're not too common right now, anyways. That said, I think Watermantle has a stronger ability, and Priest has so many combo cards already that saving combo cards for the Priest of the Feast will be pretty hard. I guess it's a 4 mana 3/6, so it's not that important you save any combo cards for it, but yeah, I think it's hard for aggressive decks to leave this up, but for the most part, aggressive decks are killing early game minions anyways, so I think it's 3 out of 5. It's good, but nothing super good. Last Priest card, Onyx Bishop. I think Resurrect base cards kind of a critical flaw in the sense that they're like inherently tempo based decks but using a combo approach, and Onyx Bishop isn't that aggressively statted. I think at 4 mana this card could enable a resurrection based deck, but at 5 mana it doesn't follow up with Injured Blademaster, which is like the minion you most want to resurrect. So it doesn't follow up that well with Injured Blademaster. And Priest's biggest problem right now is really poor early game, and Onyx Bishop doesn't really fix that. So 2 out of 5. Going to rogue cards. Swashbuckler. It's like a web spinner clone, kind of like Babbling Book is. It's time for rogue instead of mage. I think Swashbuckler's a 1-drop, kind of like Babbling Book, where it's good all game long and combines even better with rogue hero power than mage. Just because, 1/1 combined with rogue power. Well, rogue hero power is better early than mage, so you're more incentivized to use it. And then it enables you to trade a 3/2s with your hero power, or just, I guess, 2/2s as well, things like that. So, yeah, it goes very well with the hero power turn 1. Rogues kind of want 1-drops more than 2-drops, kind of like mage does. It's like, they're similar classes. I could see this card being played in any rogue deck just because it's so flexible, but I think it looks best in a more tempo-based, less combo-based, like pirate / mid-range style tempo rogue, which doesn't really exist too much right now, mostly Miracle, but 3 out of 5, I think it's a viable card, but I do think that rogue players don't like to use new cards. It's like they're so, I wouldn't say stubborn, it's more about like, rogue decks seem like very, I don't know, some of the rogue cards are just so good, they're all like kind of set in stone, and even like the neutrals go, like Drakes and Blood Mage, things like Violet Teacher, just seems hard to fit in. Next card, Deadly Fork. I think the Death Rattle here is weaker than Draw card because the card is over-costed Fire War Axe. I believe the Death Rattle gives you a 3 mana 3/2 weapon, but it gives you a Fire War Axe late in the game, or at least not on turn 2, and Fire War Axe is the best, and Fire War Axe shines in turn 2. We're not really currently in an age where like Polluted Hoarder is good, and it's like, this is 3 mana for 3/2 Death Rattle, which is worse than Draw card, whereas Polluted Hoarder is a 4 mana 4/2 draw card, and Loot Hoarder is mostly only played in combo decks, so 2 out of 5. I don't think this card's constructed viable. Wicked Witch Doctor, Shaman card. This is similar to Violet Teacher. It's a 4 mana 3/4, so it's a little bit weaker body but stronger effect because you get a totem. Some of the times you get a 1/1, just same as Violet Teacher, but a lot of 0/2s are probably better, and they all have the totem tag. It has a large amount of synergy with Totemic Might in the same way Violet Teacher has with Power of the Wild, and Totemic Might is 0 mana, so it's like even easier to combo. But on the other hand, the current mid-range Totem Shaman is really tempo based and already has so many cards that flow with the style with Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem openings. I feel like it's hard to fit in like a 4 mana 3/4. It's not really strong to play on curve, and it's not really strong to build a combo deck around. And mid-range Shaman has a lot less spell synergy than Druid does at the moment. So 2 out of 5, don't think it'll be played. Spirit Claws. Spirit Claws still, I don't think, has enough turn 2 spell damage synergy. You have like maybe Kobolds and Blood Mage. Really, Kobolds aren't really constructed playable, kind of, and you know, the spell power totem is too inconsistent. I can see Spirit Claws maybe being played in mid-range Shaman with Blood Mage and Azure Drakes, maybe a couple more spell damage activators, but overall I don't think it has quite enough power to justify 2 out of 5. Maelstrom Portal. This actually feels like the strongest of the Portal cards, and I can actually kind of compare this card to Ravaging Ghoul and Twilight Flamecaller, with Ravaging Ghoul being like one of the best decks right now. Let's see, it's like a 2 mana for a Ravaging Ghoul effect. I mean, it doesn't hurt your own minions, but that's not really why a Ghoul's good. So let's say 2 mana AoE for 1, but also leaves behind a body, a 1-drop body, mostly between, I don't know, 1/2 and 2/1. Sometimes you can get lucky and get like Flame Imp, but or Voidwalkers. Something like, you know, one, I don't know, even like a 2/2 type isn't too rare, and it's 2 mana. This also combines with spell power, unlike Ravaging Ghoul and Twilight Flamewalker, so I think compared to Spirit Claws, Maelstrom Portal can get all the value from the spell damage in a quick burst, which is why I don't think Spirit Claws is that good. You play Spirit Claws and you play Blood Mage, your Blood Mage dies, you're unlikely to activate Spirit Claws for a long time, whereas you could play Blood Mage Maelstrom Portal, or you know, whatever, roll spell power to get Maelstrom Portal. On that one turn you get all the value immediately. And also, since Shaman has like bad, I mean, Shaman doesn't have bad AoE, but Shaman AoE is so easy to play around because once they play Lightning Storm, it screws them over because of overload a lot of times. Shaman doesn't have like a cheap AoE deal with something like a, you know, turn 3 to 4 Forbidden Ritual, or you know, just like a couple of 1/1s and 2/1s left over. It's super hard to commit a Lightning Storm, so overload. I think it could have a strong place in mid-range Shaman, because you know, you don't have to commit to Lightning Storm. Mid-range Shaman can run a lot of spell power, but I think mid-range Shaman's going to face a lot of competition. Beast Druid, Dragon Pally, new strong mid-range decks, and mid-range Shaman still has always had a huge weakness to Yogg, because it's like so board based in the mid game, and you know, that's just so super weak to Yogg right now. 4 to 5 though, I think this is a very strong card. Fool's Bane. I think Fool's Bane is like a control card. Well, it's a control card which allows Warrior to trade life for tempo, but I think the trade-off rate is too poor. By turn 5, 3 damage effects is usually not enough to kill the minions being dropped around those turns, and having multiple hits that destroy one minion will make Fool's Bane generally not worth it. You know, if you have to slam like kill like a 4/5 or 4/4, you can't exactly easily like attack it twice with Fool's Bane. It does a good job at destroying multiple small minions like Juggler and Direwolf, but I think Brawl will generally be a much better area effect spell. 2 out of 5, it's just like, well, this is like a new type of experimental card in a way. It seems a little bit understated. Like, I don't know, overstated, I guess, a little bit too weak. You just take simply too much damage. And Fireworks type effects shine on like immediately. Turn 2, turn 5 is a little bit too slow. Ironforged Portal next. This card's somewhat similar to Shield Block plus a 2-drop, or the old Shield Maidens, but the inconsistency of Ironforged Portal should make this significantly worse than both of them. I feel like a lot of 4-drops rely on the Battle Cry. If you go through them, there's a lot of 2/4s with Battle Cries, so you're going to be stuck with a lot of 2/4s. 5 mana 2/4 is, you know, some of the worst things you can ever do in turn 5. You're competing with 4/4s and things like that, so it's gonna trade awful. So yeah, 2 out of 5. Okay, so we have done all the class cards now, and I believe we have now the last neutrals. Pompous Thespian. So this is a 3/2 taunt for 2 mana. It's 2 impact to be seriously considered. There have been strictly better cards that are never used, like Anodized Robocub and like the Warrior card, 2 mana for 3/2 that gives Battlecry something taunt. It's like those cards were never really considered used, and this is way too weak. 1 out of 5. Netherspite Historian next. So this is a 1/3 draw card for 2 mana, basically, and that's pretty insane. The old Novice Engineers got nerfed and they're only 1/2. Discovering a dragon should be very comparable to drawing a card. Also, I believe that like these a lot of the new dragon decks that I'm thinking will pop up are like slower based mid-range dragon decks instead of a mid-range like dragon deck that's so pressure / fast based like the warrior one we see with Alexstrasza champion. I think slower dragon decks were really missing another mid. I mean, I talked a little bit about this on the Paladin review and Nightbane, but we're really missing like another non 9 to 10 drop dragon that's good. You know, aggro dragon decks have Draconid Crusher, but you know, for these type of slower like Dragon Priest, Dragon Paladin, there's no way we can consider like getting people to 15 before turn 6. And yeah, as you all know, the big dragons are pretty underpowered unless you're playing it in very, like, I guess Alexstrasza or Malygos, but you know, they're really specific decks you have to build them around. So yeah, now we have enough like good mid-range cards where you don't have to use any big dragons. Netherspy Historian discovers like huge dragons a lot of times, and you can discover Azure Drake, you can discover Twilight Guardian. It's just so good. So yeah, I'm gonna rate this card 4 out of 5. Stats even better than Old Novice Engineer. Synergy with Bran, very easy to activate the dragon effect. Gives you a ton of late game, kind of like Museum Curator, even without trying. So as long as these mid-range dragon decks can handle faster decks, which with Bookworm I think it can, as well as cards like Nightbane Templar. I suck with names, but yeah, I think we have a thing here. Runic Egg. So this is an interesting card because nothing like this was like really seen before. It's effectively a 1 mana heal for 2 cantrip when you don't have board control, because if they have board control, they're just gonna kill your egg. So it's like 1 mana heal for 2, draw a card. But the decks that could activate Runic Egg generally don't really care for the heal in the first place, because the decks that are activating Runic Egg, I'm assuming are like Abusive Sergeant type decks. You don't really care to heal in Zoo. But I think Runic Egg could be best in classes that have hero powers that create tokens, like Shaman and Paladin, because they can build a deck around activating Runic Egg and other small minions. So like you can have like hero power Paladins and Shamans, and using cards like Flame Tongues and Blessing Kings and Argus, like a new type of mid-range deck. Technically Zoo as well, but I mean, I don't know if Zoo wants like... Zoo already has... So the way I think about it is, if you have enough 1-drops, you don't really care for the Runic Egg. You'd rather just activate like your, you know, 1-drops, Voidwalkers, and even Dragon Egg is better. But it's like a type of deck where you want to run Kings in the deck, and you want to run maybe even Abusives and Old Demands, these kind of cards, but you know, you don't want to run 10 1-drops, right? At that point you're an aggro deck. It's like a mid-range deck, you want to run these like buffs, but you know, you wouldn't run Runic Egg if you had 10 1-drops, because it'd be so easy to activate those cards anyways. It's just like, it's like a nice compromise, because you can add Runic Eggs to your deck, and since they cycle, this is like my sleeper card set. I'm rating it a 3 out of 5, but you know, I'm safely rating it a 3 out of 5, but I can see this card being like meta defining if it can enable that type of like mid-range dynamic, and if those somehow are good. Also, it can make some comparisons to Dragon Egg. I think Drawing Egg is generally more powerful than a 2/1 Whelp, but you never get more than 1 Whelp. But then you also get at least draw a card all the time. Dragon Whelp, I feel like if it gets like brawled, for example, you don't get anything. Alright, anyways, Pantry Spider. 2/6 stats for 3 mana is very good, but the stats is split like very, very weird. I don't even consider it a very powerful standalone card because the stats are so bad. By turn 3, like a 1/3 stat line is like as bad as possible. If you could have 4 stats, you know, any combination. The only possible other worse ones being a 0/4 and 4/0 technically. You know, you're fighting 3/3s with 1/3s on turn 3. I think, but it has Beast synergy, so it could have some synergy with Houndmaster and Druid Beast, but Druid has like better turn 3 Beasts with Druid of Flame, 2/5 and 5/2, and also Raptor. So there's too many good 3-drop Beasts. I think Hunter's Carrion Grub, which is comparable, and also it's not really a playable card in the first place. I think it's mostly going to be used maybe in Evolution Shaman, but that deck isn't strong enough that I predict will be a thing, so 2 out of 5. Arcane Anomaly. 2 mana for 2/1, and it grows health every time you cast a spell. I think growing health is better than growing attack for 1-drops for the most part. But a base stat line of 2/1 should make this card a little too weak for competitive play. Another 1 mana snowball minions, like Mana Worm and Talon Trog, are 1/3s, which is also more sticky, so it has more time for the effect to have. Like, it has more time in play for the effect to snowball. 2 out of 5, don't think it's really going to be constructed playable. Menagerie Magician, I believe we have talked about Zubat. Much the same, 2 out of 5 rating, same as Zubat. I think Beast, Dragon, Murloc Synergy are some of the funnest cards though. And I kind of want to see like a all 3 tribal, like Zoo, kind of, that'd be really interesting. Like maybe some kind of Druid, Beast, Dragon, Murloc, Druid, but I mean, I feel like having enough of them at the battlefield at once should be close to impossible. And there's cards like Gormok that have stronger situational battle cries. 2 out of 5. Arcanosmith. I mean, my neutral cards are going to kind of be boring. There's too many. Most of the neutral commons are just weak, so again, 2 out of 5. Too often I think it would get eclipsed by Sinjin because the split stats mean you'd think you'd just rather have a 3/5 taunt instead of a 0/5 than a 3/2. It seems much better and constructed in Arena though because it handles removal better, so it's like good against decks that have to remove your minions, but it does too poorly in creature combat. Could be a Zoo card because I think it's better at protecting important low health minions than protecting your face from damage, so I think it's like not really like a control mage or control warrior card. I think it's gonna, if it's gonna be played, I think it's more like in Zoo type decks. Yeah, main reason is like 0/5. Say you're playing control deck and you play 0/5, aggro decks will run that card over with minions and you won't kill anything. So even though it has like 5 health, maybe you count at 7 health with a 3/2 for 4 mana, which is a lot, but it's like, that's why I said you'd most rather just have Sinjin. Sinjin's not even a playable card because, you know, Sinjin 3/5, you're more likely to trade in a couple of minions where they die, and then you're taking less damage in the long run compared to Arcanosmith. Last neutral common, Violet Illusionist. I think a 4/3 stat line for 3 mana, it's okay, but there's so many like okay full power like decent stat minions with marginal effects that are usually not competitive. You know, you have tons of 3/4s for 3 now with Spider Tank, even the 2 legendaries that do stuff like the Soul Sisters. You have like Injured Blade Master 4/3 for 3. No one ever plays that other than when it's, you know, when you have like Circle or something. Resurrect. Mostly synergy with weapons, but Rogue has very good 3-drops like SI, mostly SI, but like kind of like technically Van Cleef and Earthen Ring, and Warrior doesn't really need the effect. 2 out of 5. Oh, actually going to the rares, I don't think they're too powerful either. Gonna go through them kind of quickly. Avian Watcher, even for secret decks, 5 mana for 4/7 taunt, activating at 80% of the time isn't even good enough. You know, even if you count like 80% of times 4/7 taunt, 20% of times 3/6 no taunts, it's not weak, way too weak. 2 out of 5. Moat Lurker, kind of interesting effect, but I could be playing Sylvanas at this amount of mana. Has a lot of synergy with different things, but none of them are quite strong enough. It's a 6 mana for 3/3, like kill a card, but not really. It's like almost like just bounce a card. Yeah, it has synergy with some of your own stuff. It's a 2 out of 5 card, I feel. Not strong enough. Arcane Giant, too slow and too expensive for the early game, and by the time that this card is discounted enough to play, most tempo-based decks should have fizzled out already. So if you're playing Arcane Giant like a control deck against the tempo deck, the tempo/aggro decks are going to be like out of steam by the time you get a cheap Arcane Giant. If you're playing Arcane Giant in a tempo deck, like a tempo mage, trying to, you know, playing kind of like playing Sea Giant Zoo in a way, I think by the time that you can play Arcane Giant cheaply, you're pretty much out of stuff. Like you're basically playing Arcane Giant as like your final dying breath before you run out of stuff, and I feel like it's probably better for you to run a more traditional finisher like Leroy Jenkins or Fireball, like, you know, more burn at the end as you run out of stuff, compared to like, it's not like Zuri ever play Sea Giant fast, like, but I think even a tempo mage, which is like probably the most spell-based aggro deck, by the time that you ever play Arcane Giant, it's going to be so late in the game, like turn 6 at least, by the time it costs like even 5 mana. I'd rather just have another finisher. It's not gonna. You're never gonna get like a turn 2 Arcane Giant Tempo Mage. Moros, my last card. I think this card is like best against aggressive decks without any AoE, since a 1/1 every turn can cause some annoyance, like a ping every turn, but the stats are quite low. It's not even a real strict upgrade from Dreadsteed, since Moros can die, and Dreadsteed needed a large cheat engine to make even remotely playable / powerful. Moros needed Mal'Ganis, as well as like things like PO and Void Caller to be playable. I don't think having Moros be 1 mana less neutral makes it good enough. 2 out of 5. Actually, just rated most of the neutrals unplayable today, but that's what it is. Anyways, that's my card review. Last words. I'm predicting 2 new mid-range decks. Mid-range Dragon Pally being one of the really good decks, I feel, as well as mid-range aggressive Druid being a deck comparable to Dragon Warrior in power, like a more aggressive list with Menagerie Warden and the Raven guy. And last deck is, I think Control Mage is going to be really cool, and I think Control Mages aren't going to play Reno anymore. I'm kind of curious what the new like powerful early game from Control Mage. I can see us dropping Reno and just trying to heal from random like barriers and blocks, maybe like Alexstrasza and like the random like conjure effects. You can get a lot of heals from them, like more barriers or ice blocks. So yeah, that's my card review. Excited for Karazhan. Excited to play some of my some slower mid-range decks that we don't see a lot nowadays. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time.